everyone, we decided to do a different video, and I really hope that this video is going to help you. Now, if you want to be financially independent, I believe this video will be really helpful because I'll be sharing with you 4 steps that every person who wants to be financially independent should follow. Let's get right to it. The first step is that you need to get out of debt. Now, that seems obvious, but let's understand why this is important. Part of being financially independent is to not lack anything to be able to provide for yourself and the people who depend on you. But if you have debt, it's impossible to do that. A person who is losing blood, is hemorrhaging blood, cannot give blood to someone who needs. I believe you'll agree with me. So the first thing is to get out of debt. What do you need to get out of debt? Well, prioritize paying off your debt. If you owe money to money lenders, negotiate your debt. Perhaps they are chasing you for you to pay a certain amount by a certain date. And if that's impossible, you know it's impossible, then tell them. Tell them, I want to pay my debt and I will pay it as soon as I can, but it's impossible to pay it the way that you are asking. So you negotiate, renegotiate that debt. Have a schedule of payment to pay from the most urgent debt to the least urgent. The most urgent would be money lenders who are threatening you. After that would be people that are important to you, your family. Do you owe money to your family, to close friends? Pay those people off as quickly as you can. Remember, they helped you in a moment of need, and it's not fair to make them wait on something that belongs to them. And then the third category of debts that are still important, but perhaps not as urgent, are things that you can manage, can wait a little longer, or you can make smaller payments. And then the first step is to pay off everything you owe. And before we move to the second step, remember that one of the debts, the first, not one of, but the first debt you have to pay is your debt with God. You know, the Bible tells us that if we are not tithers, faithful in our tithe, we are robbing God. So how can we expect to pay off our debts with others if we don't clear the debt that we have with God? So become faithful to Him first. That's the first thing. No matter what happens, you separate your tithe, you bring that to God when you have your income, and you start planning to pay your debts. And also, make sure you have a deadline, a cut-off time when you want to pay that debt. So by middle of this year, by the end of this year, to be debt-free. That's the first step. The second step is, you know, you might feel tempted when you finish paying your debt and you have a little bit of money left over. Perhaps for the first time in years, you will have some money left over at the end of the month. You will then be tempted to start buying things you don't need. So the second step is stop buying things that you don't need. A lot of times we would be able normally to take the money we saved and invest it in something profitable, but that doesn't happen because the person is tempted by the adverts on TV, on Facebook, of this new thing that came out, or because you saw your friend buying something and you don't need that, but you buy it anyway. And then you just go back to the first step because you create another debt. You're buying things you don't need, and perhaps that's the reason why you got into debt. So the second step, if that is not essential, if you don't need it, don't buy it. And here's a tip on how you can do that. Every time that you want to buy something, an item of clothing, a holiday, if you really want that, wait a few days. Think about it. It may be that when you revisit the idea of buying that next month or in a few weeks, you will see actually you don't really need it and you were able to save that money. The third step is try to have an additional income. Why is that important? Because if you want to be financially independent and you have a job, we know that having a job can perhaps cover your bills and, allow you to have an okay life. But if you want independence, it would be good if you could have an additional income. So now that you've paid off your debts, that you're not spending money on what you don't need, you'll be able to save. And as you save, think, how can I have an additional income to add to what I'm saving? Perhaps you can start a business on the side. Maybe you know how to do something, you have a skill, you can sew, you can repair people's clothes, you can cook, maybe you can sell food, maybe you can start a business back home in your country. You can buy a plot of land and start having a plantation. You could open a store and have a family member that you can trust employed there on running your business. So having an additional income, if you want to be financially independent, is extremely important, because surely you understand that by working for someone, that will not make you rich. You want to be successful, have an additional income that eventually will be your main income. The side business that you are starting one day can be your main source of income. And the fourth step and final step is plan your investments. Here's the thing, there's a big difference between saving money and investing. Anything that you save and you're just building up little by little and you don't do anything with that money, sooner or later something's going to happen to make that money disappear. Someone's going to get sick in your family and you feel you need to pay for that person's treatment. Your car's going to break down, you're going to fix your car or buy a new car, that's your savings gone. But if you invest what you saved to multiply what you have, then you will never be caught off guard. So if you were able to save a little bit, you are debt free, you stop spending money on what you didn't need, you have an additional income, now you have a little bit of money saved. So what are you going to do with that money? How are you going to invest? Plan just like you planned to, by the end of the year or in 6 months, to pay off all your debts. Plan, once I have some money, how will I invest in opening a business, in multiplying what I have? The idea of being financially independent is that in 1 year or 2 or 3 years, you will no longer depend on your job. You have a business that has a good income, you are reliant on that and not anyone else. And here's a bonus tip, a fifth tip. Now, we were not going to talk about this, but here it is, because this is extremely important. Everything that you do on the altar of God, your tithes, your offerings, you are not giving that away, you are not wasting that, you are using your faith, investing on the altar. Never think that because you're trying to start a business or you're trying to pay off your debts, that you should not use your faith with your tithe and your offerings, because those are key parts of using your faith. And you will see that throughout the whole Bible. I hope that these 4 steps with the 5th bonus one has been helpful. And if you put this in practice, maybe not in 1 day or 1 month, but very soon, you will be testifying on the altar that you are financially independent. If you feel that this video has been helpful, make sure you share it with someone. And most importantly, even more important than sharing this video, is to make sure you practice these 4 steps with the 5th and final bonus one. If you do that, very soon we will have good news from you. May God bless you abundantly. Bye-bye.